Hi, I'm Trent Bosch. I want to show you just a little bit about how I develop a tenon on the bottom of my pieces when I'm starting to turn them and create the outer surfaces of the piece. So basically the consideration I have with my tenon is I want to pay attention to the size jaws that I have in my chuck, matching the size piece that I'm actually turning. If I'm turning a really large piece with a small set of jaws, that doesn't work out great. A lot of people decide, oh, I'm turning a big piece, I only have small jaws, so let me make a really large tenon and try and use those small jaws. That doesn't work great either. So you want to match the size jaws with the size piece you have. And that comes from a little bit of experience, but I usually err on the side of a little bit bigger jaws than a little bit smaller jaws. And when I am developing the tenon for those jaws, I want the jaws to match up really good. I have another good video on talking about the tenon, and you can check that out up here. And that basically shows you in depth about how I develop a tenon and kind of the sizes and everything. But I think it's an important thing just to quickly gloss over the process. So for this particular piece, we're going to be using the standard jaws in my Vicmark chuck. And those jaws require about a 2 1/4 inch tenon. If I create a 2 1/4 inch tenon, that's going to give those jaws really good surface area contact on that piece. And the illustration that just came up, look at that and you can kind of see how if that tenon is too big, those jaws are not going to be making really good contact with the piece that we're turning. All that's going to be digging in are those 8 little points in the edges of the jaws rather than the full surface area contact that we can get. Another quick little thing that I'll show you is the way that tenon is developed. There's several different things that we can pay attention to. We really want to make sure that the shape of the tenon matches the shape of the jaw and that we have a really nice flat spot for the face of that jaw to register up against, as shown in that first larger picture. You can look at all the other examples of not so great tenons, and we could talk about those, but I think you could probably guesstimate what's going on with each one of those tenons. The flat spot's not registering up against in a lot of them, and there is no flat spot in some of them. The shape of the tenon is wrong in several of them. So just look at those and kind of determine how to develop the tenon the best. So let's go ahead and develop a tenon on this bowl that we have right here right now. I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. And I've started just to rough it out. I want to go ahead and develop that tenon on the back side here. I'm going to take several cuts to kind of just true up that surface. And the cuts I was using there was I was just basically cutting with the bottom edge of this tool, and with the flute fairly closed up, so I'm cutting with that bottom edge. But if it's open too much, it's going to want to catch and grab. So close that up a little bit, and then we're riding the bevel along that tenon that we're generating as well. So I'm going to go ahead and take another cut. We need to get this tenon down to the proper diameter. That, like I said, for the jaws I'm using, about a 2 1/4 inch tenon is going to be ideal. So I think we're pretty close to that 2 1/4. This particular gouge that I'm using is a 60-degree swept back grind gouge, and it has a hard time getting any detail or specifically the shape that I want, my tenon or my dovetail shape I want on this tenon. So I'm going to switch to a different tool, which you're going to see is a lot different as far as the angles are concerned. So that was a 60-degree angle, and on this particular tool it is a 30-degree angle. It's going to allow me to get really nice and close in that area that we want. We'll start by creating a flat spot there, and then we'll start by setting the bevel down on the already turned surface there, and we'll cut forward slightly and kind of just go back and forth between those two, developing that tenon. so that we have that dovetail shape that we want on there and a nice flat surface up here to match with it. I also like to take a duplicate of my jaw, set it on there, and kind of check and see what's going on. What I have right now with this particular one is a few issues. First off, I'm bottoming out on this tenon down here, and it's not letting me then come up nice and flush against the face of there. And remember, this jaw will be in a chuck, so it's going to be square. I mean, I could push it at an angle, but that's not going to help me. So I need to take a little bit more material from there, and then we'll see how it fits on the chuck, or the jaw, or how the tenon matches the jaw. Basically just flattened off the back side of that. Now I can stick that there. We're much closer, and that would probably work great. We've got a pretty good shape that matches pretty nicely on there. We've got a nice flat spot for the face of the jaw to register up against. And we're also registered up against the bottom of this jaw. I don't necessarily need to do that. I'd rather have there be just a little space between the bottom and the wood, so that to make sure that the face of that jaw can really register up against that. So to do that, I'm going to switch to my bowl gouge just real quick. Scrape with that bottom edge to kind of take a little material off. And then get down close to the detail area there with my more detail type tool. Now let's check it out one more time. I'm pretty happy with that. We got a little gap. We're going to make sure that that jaw is going to register up really good against that. I'm real happy with that tenon. Should work good for us. Now I'll continue to shape this bowl out and get it to be where I want it to be. Hope that helps you, figure out your tenons a little bit quicker and easier, and kind of the reasoning behind a couple of the things we need to do to make sure our tenon is going to hold the best it possibly can hold.